On the grandest stage in the World Cup final against Croatia, Mbappé would face the ultimate test. But what if this victory was just the beginning? What if football had unleashed a dynasty so powerful that even the sport itself couldn't contain it? This is the story of a boy who became a king, and a dynasty that was born in the fire of the 2018 World Cup. But the question remains, can the world handle the power of Kylian Mbappé? Stay tuned as we break down the rise of a footballing legend. The Russian summer of 2018 buzzed with anticipation. Planes touched down in Moscow carrying the world's most dazzling football stars. Giants who had conquered club football, men whose faces graced billboards from Paris to Buenos Aires. And somewhere among them, almost unnoticed, walked a boy barely old enough to rent a car. Kylian Mbappé adjusted his headphones and stepped onto the tarmac, his eyes hidden beneath a simple cap, his mind already racing faster than his famous legs. Around him, teammates like Antoine Griezmann laughed and posed for cameras, while Paul Pogba flexed his larger-than-life charisma for reporters hungry for sound bites. They were the generals, the kings. Mbappé? He was the apprentice, a whisper in a room full of roars. Let's dive into the crazy at just 19 years old Kylian Mbappé. Welcome to Sportsmaster 360. Inside the French camp, coach Didier Deschamps watched from the shadows. He knew what few others did. Tucked behind Mbappé's youthful grin and wide, eager eyes was a force of nature waiting to be unleashed. But timing was everything. Deschamps didn't flaunt his secret weapon. He nurtured it quietly, shielded it from the world's sharp teeth. He would not show his hand too early. Training sessions told a story the cameras missed. When the media left, when the stadiums emptied, Mbappé transformed. Blistering sprints that left defenders gasping. Feints and flicks too quick for the eye. A fearlessness that unsettled even hardened veterans. His teammates began whispering about him in the locker rooms. First with amusement, then with awe. Did you see what the kid did to Sidibe today? Bro, nobody can catch him. It's not normal. Yet to the outside world, he remained just another fresh-faced talent. Promising, sure, but not a savior. Headlines praised Griezmann's experience. Pogba's leadership, Kanté's engine. Mbappé was a footnote. Maybe in 2022, pundits chuckled. He's too young for this one. The group stage opened under heavy skies, both literally and metaphorically. France, weighed down by expectation, stumbled to narrow victories. Amid the cautious play, small moments flashed. Mbappé darting through defenders like water slipping between fingers. A sudden acceleration that made entire backlines panic. They were not goals yet. They were glimpses, hints of a gathering storm. In one breathless moment against Peru, Mbappé broke free, a predator sensing blood, and bundled the ball into the net. A scrappy goal, not a masterpiece, but it made him the youngest Frenchman ever to score in a World Cup. Still, the world remained skeptical. Promising, analysts said, arms crossed. But can he handle the real pressure? They didn't know it yet. Nobody did. But the boy they doubted was about to set the tournament, and the future of football, on fire. The stage was set under the sweltering heat of Kazan, a city humming with the electricity of something bigger than a mere football match. In one corner, Argentina, bruised, battered, yet still carrying the hopes of a nation on the back of Lionel Messi, a man desperate to deliver a final miracle. In the other, France, young, ambitious, uncertain, hiding a secret blade behind their polished armor. The world tuned in expecting a coronation. Messi, they said, would rise. Messi would rescue Argentina. Few spoke of the teenage shadow in blue, warming up with the others, eyes burning with a secret fire. The opening whistle blew, and chaos unfolded. In the 11th minute, the ball spilled into the French half, and like a spark touching dry grass, Kylian Mbappé exploded. He snatched the ball and unleashed himself, across half the field, tearing through white shirts like paper in a hurricane. His speed was inhuman, a silent scream across the green. Argentine defenders lunged desperately, grasping at air, and finally brought him down in the box. Too late to stop the inevitable. Penalty for France. The first crack appeared on Argentina's godly facade. Minutes later, another twist. Argentina clawed back. A stunner from Di Maria, then another goal amid a scramble. The tide seemed to turn. Surely now experience would triumph over youth. But as the second half began, Mbappé waited, coiled like a panther. And then, the eruption. A loose ball in the box. A defender's hesitation. Mbappé, fearless and lightning fast, seized it. In one fluid motion, he smashed it past the keeper with an audacity only the young can dare. 1-1. Before Argentina could even find their breath, France surged again. Another attack, another opening. Mbappé appeared, ghosting into the perfect pocket of space, and drilled the ball low and hard into the corner. 2-1. Game flipped. Destiny rewritten. Messi, isolated and helpless, looked on. The man who once danced through entire armies now trapped in slow motion, watching the world he ruled begin to slip away. By the time France sealed the victory, 4-3, the world no longer whispered about Kylian Mbappé, it roared his name. Commentators scrambled for words. Fans in every corner of the globe scrambled to Google his age. Even the great Pelé himself watched, smiling knowingly. But beneath the celebrations, a chilling question crept through the footballing universe. Had the age of the old gods ended, and a new king risen from the ashes? The world had stood still to witness it, and nothing would ever be the same again. The roar of the crowd in Russia still echoed in Kylian Mbappe's ears, but the victory over Argentina had already begun to feel distant. France had been riding high on a wave of success, but with every goal he scored, every record he broke, the weight of expectation pressed heavier on his young shoulders. From Paris to Tokyo, Mbappe's name was on the lips of everyone. The world wasn't just watching him anymore, they were studying him, analyzing him, judging him. He was the golden boy, the savior of French football, but with that crown came a target. The media churned out stories, the teenager who would rule football. And yet, as he trained with his team in the cool, quiet moments before the storm of the final, a strange feeling began to creep in. It was there, in the sidelong glances from his teammates, small moments that he couldn't quite place. A quiet bitterness, a subtle resentment. In the locker room, Blaise Matuidi, who had always been a pillar of the French midfield, watched Mbappe's flashy moves with increasing disdain. Is it his time to shine? Or mine? The veteran midfielder's words stayed silent, but they lingered in the air, palpable. Paul Pogba, the self-appointed leader of the squad, made an effort to speak to Mbappé, offering advice and support, but there was a sharp edge to his voice, an undercurrent of something more than camaraderie. The line between mentorship and envy blurred with each passing match. And the outside world? The pressure was becoming unbearable. Coaches and rival teams spent sleepless nights dissecting Mbappe's every movement, every play, working overtime to figure out how to stop him. It wasn't just about tactics anymore, it was personal. Defenders targeted him with brutal fouls, knowing that a challenge from behind could break his rhythm. They weren't just trying to stop him from scoring, they wanted to crush him, to make sure he knew his place. The whispers grew louder in the stands, in the media, even in the French locker room. He's too arrogant, too fast, too young. His achievements had made him a global sensation, but they had also painted a target on his back. The world's brightest new star wasn't a hero to everyone. Some feared his rise, others were jealous of it. As France marched toward the final, the pressure was suffocating. The media's insatiable thirst for more Mbappé content fed a frenzy that bordered on obsession. Yet with each goal, the question began to take shape. Is this boy ready to bear the weight of a nation's dreams and lead them to glory? Inside the French camp, the stakes grew higher. While Deschamps preached unity, cracks began to appear in the facade. Was it jealousy, discomfort, or simply the realization that the torch had been passed and that Mbappé might just be France's new king? He wasn't the future anymore, yet he was the present, and that frightened some of the old guard. It was a crown that seemed to fit, but did it belong? The night before the final, Mbappé stood alone in his room, the flickering lights of his phone screen casting shadows on his face. The world would watch. The weight of history would fall on his shoulders. The murmurs of doubt around him only seemed to grow louder. Will the young king fall before he even sits on the throne? Tomorrow, he would step onto the greatest stage of them all, but deep inside, there was a part of him, a quiet, hidden part, that wondered if he had the strength to carry it. The day had arrived. The lights of the Luzhniki Stadium burned brighter than the sun itself, casting long shadows over the hallowed turf. The world watched, collectively holding its breath. It wasn't just a final, and it was the culmination of a generation's longing, of a country's dreams, of a sport's shifting power. In one corner stood France, heavy with hope and history. In the other, Croatia, the underdogs, the warriors who had defied expectations and dared to challenge the footballing giants. But today, it wasn't about them. Today, the world's eyes were fixed on one man, Kylian Mbappé. France had battled their way to this moment, and now the boy who had torched the world with his speed and skill stood on the precipice of greatness. Mbappé was no longer just the promise of tomorrow. He was the face of today, a force that could not be ignored. But what had once been the hum of potential was now a roar. The final began with the intensity of a war. Croatia, relentless, pushed forward with everything they had. The French team held firm, but as the minutes passed, the tension built. The battle raged, and somewhere in the maelstrom, Mbappé waited, calm amidst the storm. Then, in the 65th minute, the moment arrived. A ball floated in, a perfect pass from Pogba. Mbappé surged forward, leaving the defenders scrambling. One touch, and he was through. The goalkeeper, Dominik Livakovic, came rushing out, but Mbappé, as if knowing exactly what was coming, sidestepped with elegance and pace that only he possessed. He took aim, and with a strike that could only be described as divine, sent the ball into the back of the net. A roar of disbelief relief erupted from the French side. The world held its breath. The teenager had done it again. Kylian Mbappé, at just 19, had joined Pelé as the only teenager in history to score in a World Cup final. The sports world, the nation of France, and millions of viewers around the globe bowed to him. This was more than a goal. This was a moment for the ages, one that would be immortalized in every corner of the footballing universe. But as the celebrations erupted, a dark undercurrent pulled at the edges of the scene. With every flash of Mbappé's dazzling talent, a question gnawed at the heart of the football world. Had the game, the very sport, unlocked something too powerful to control? As the match wound down and France sealed their victory, a crushing realization hit. The win was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. The world had witnessed a moment that transcended a single match, a single tournament. This young man, this unstoppable force, had only just scratched the surface of what he could achieve. A dynasty had been born. Not in the empty spaces of a history book, but on the field, in the blood, sweat, and brilliance of a 19-year-old. The final whistle blew, and France erupted. Mbappé, his face painted with the glory of victory, stood still for a moment, his eyes fixed on the sky. In that instant, it wasn't just the World Cup he had won. He had won the world's heart, and in doing so had started something that might change the very nature of football. A dynasty, a revolution. But as the crowds cheered, the world held its breath again. Was Mbappé simply the brightest star of his time, or had he become a force too big for even football to contain? Was he a hero or a harbinger of change that no one could fully grasp? The game had never been the same, and neither would Mbappé.